Hi folks, I hope I'm live. This is the Zen Witch on a really snowy and raining on top of it icy day, coming with a little smoke cleansing for you first, okay? Okay. I'm checking in today because I wanted to address a comment that was made on, I think it was one of my Art of Ritual videos, and it was about what it boils down to: what is witchcraft? The question from Honey Bunny and Bunny, I think it was hold on a second here. I just realized I don't have my microphone like in front of my face. Wow. All right, hold on. Don't you love live streaming? Let me get my, all right, here we go. Get my microphone a little bit closer to me here. Is that better? I'm sure it is better. And by now, I might actually be heckin' live streaming, although I don't see me on my channel yet. And I'm looking for comments. There we go. I am live. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. All right. Live streaming? Let me get my, all right, here we go. Okay. So, again, fiddling around here just to get things set, and nobody's watching now anyway. Okay, and I can see my chat. Right on. You go here. Okay, so to say again, I want to address a question that a viewer named Honey and Bunny asked. And the question was, is remote viewing witchcraft? So we're going to tackle this weighty question of what's witchcraft and what's not. And that's a question that to me doesn't have a short answer, but the short answer is, the first short answer that came up in my head was, is it witchcraft? It is if it's done by a witch. Okay. So that doesn't clear anything up, really, because there are plenty of non-witches that do remote viewing. So we do have to get into the question of what's a witch, what's witchcraft, and what's not. And so there's going to be a lot of equivocating. You're going to hear me contradict myself a lot because there is no one answer to this question. I certainly don't have it. It's very complicated. And you'll get, the issues of magic and witchcraft and paganism and how these things all intersect. And, so let's go. Let's dive in. Let me know your opinions as we go along if you happen to be watching this live stream. And I'll try to address them as best I can. It's hard for me to pay attention to two different things like talking and reading questions, but I'll do my best. So to start off, let's talk about what I think a witch is. And, again, I want to couch all of this, and fair warning, this is the strong opinion zone here. I have very strong opinions about things. That doesn't mean that I'm an expert or that I'm right overall. And let's tackle the expert thing right off the bat here, because I have a lot of experience in a lot of different things that I would not consider myself an expert in. And I think that we have so much emphasis on being an expert, having expert ability and having degrees and credentials and all that kind of stuff that, but we use it in order to invalidate people. Someone has experience in something and they have an opinion, and somebody's like, well, do you have a degree? Do you have a PhD? Are you an expert? And if you don't have those kind of paper credentials, then your opinions get dismissed. And I mean, opinions, what do they say? Everybody's got one. Opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one. And so an opinion is not valid or invalid. It's an opinion. It's like a feeling. Feelings are not invalid. They can be inappropriate. They can be out of line with what's actually happening. They can be, holdovers from toxic stuff, but feelings are feelings and they're valid for the person feeling them. You can't invalidate somebody else's feelings. It's subjective. Hi, Sarah. Sarah, stay paid. Literally a beginner, no labels, just a calling, and this is a damn good start. Thank you for topic. Good. Okay, yay. I'm so glad you're with me, Sarah. So, for instance, I am not an expert in crystals. I have a bunch of them, and I use them. But if you came to me and said, what does this crystal mean? I would have to pull out a book and look it up because I'm not an expert in it. I'm an expert in my own experience in it. Tarot, for instance. I know a hell of a lot about tarot. But I still, at this point, don't even have like the major arcana completely memorized, the order that they go in. I am an expert in my business of reading for people. I know the way it works for me. And so, I have an extensive library, and I am not afraid to say I don't know. When someone asks me a question, I am not at all afraid to say I don't know, because I'm a lifelong student and I really look forward to learning. I love it when something gives me an opportunity to go hunting down knowledge. Now, as far as witchcraft goes, I believe that a witch is, here are the attributes of what makes somebody a witch, in my opinion. So I'm going to stop saying in my opinion and everything now. You've got all that. I've put all the disclaimers out there. I'm not an expert. This is all my opinion. Take what works for you, leave the rest, okay? A witch is someone who is sensitive to energies to the point that they can manipulate those energies, magnify those energies, and direct those energies to a purpose. All right? So witchcraft to me is about the sensing, manipulation, and direction of energy. That's as nutshell as I can make it for you. Now, does that mean that everybody that does that is a witch? Now we get into really dicey territory, and right away, I don't know the answer to that. Let's go back in time to the burning days. And back then, healing someone with an herbal remedy was considered witchcraft, because they didn't understand how medicine worked, and they didn't understand how chemistry worked, and they didn't understand how illness worked, and how this planet works, and everything else. So healing someone with herbs was seen as witchcraft. You weren't allowed to do that. And let's face it, a whole lot of what was considered witchcraft in those days was just things that women were not allowed to do. And so, we got burned. But there, now I'm in the middle. Hey. So things like herbal healing. And of course, the witchy things like putting curses on things, blessing things, and even blessing. If you weren't part of the clergy, the clergy was sanctioned to do their magic, their version of magic, which, saying prayers over things, how is that different from spell work? Please tell me. Having people come and, getting blessed candles, blessing a candle for them, blessing this, blessing that. How is that not a form of magic? But it was sanctioned because it was the church. And the essence of the burning times and why they happened were, A, to control women, and B, to control the general population from thinking freely, from not towing the line. It was all about control. And what are the best things to use to control people? Fear, number one. Ignorance, number two. And that's what the church was built on. So, a lot of the burning times was about stopping the transmission of knowledge about nature, about herbs, about magic, about womanhood and our bodies and sexuality and all this stuff. It was to stop that transmission of knowledge, to stop women from getting together, because when women get together and start talking, things change. So, but back then, even more generally and even more recently, for instance, a television would have been considered magic and witchcraft before the, industrial age, before we were using electricity for things. I think about when I was a kid and I look at the phone that I have and what I'm able to do with it. I mean, I remember it was just a wild dream to think, how great would it be to be able to see somebody when I'm talking to them on the phone? And now it's a reality. And so, before we had those things, so many things are considered witchcraft because we don't know how they work, or considered magic because we don't know how they work. The word witchcraft is a spin. It's a negative spin, and that's why I choose to use the word witch. There's a lot of witches that don't use the word witch. They'll choose another witch or another word to describe themselves other than witch because of the negative connotations. For me, witch is what I am, and I also want to reclaim that word back from its, satanic, nasty, awful connotations from the burning times. So a witch is also, and I'm going to be jumping around here a lot because it really is a web of information. A witch is a follower of Wicca. Wicca is, in my mind, an organized religion because it's got a name, okay? And there's, Gardnerian Wicca and Dianic Wicca and Alexandrian Wicca and Church and School of Wicca. There are a lot of different sects of Wicca, the organized religion. I do not describe myself as Wiccan. Because I really hate organized religion, even though I belong to a church that is an organized religion. I love my church. It's Unitarian Universalist. Basically, they are liberals. Everyone is welcome. We have atheists, we have pagans, we have witches, we have Christians, we have them all. Okay. It's basically a social justice church. So I'm totally down with that. But as far as Wicca goes, and any organized religion, it's the dogma that I don't like. It's the, you must believe this, we will tell you what's true. And this is what you must believe to be a member here. And my opinions change too often. There is I think it's in the Daughters of the Moon tarot book. And it's one of the best definitions of a witch that I've ever found. And it said, a witch is a woman who is passionate about her ideals and values as they are changing. The only thing I would change about that now is I would take out woman and say a person, because and I went through a place where I was absolutely adamant that witches are women. That's all there is to it. Men need to reclaim wizardry, and I still believe that. But I also cannot tell somebody how they identify. I can't do that. Here we get into gender politics, and I'm just not doing that. I'm not going to tell someone how they may identify themselves. But I want to focus on, passionate about ideals and values as they are changing. That an open mind is really important to me, and the ability to change without being outed by the group that I'm a part of is important to me. So dogma just doesn't suit me. And from the time that I started doing ritual, it became such an active artistic expression for me that I was immediately not a part of the group that raised me, so to speak. I had the bare structure of Gardnerian Wicca, but it became much more artistic and creative and expressive, personally expressive for me. So I didn't quite fit there. But being passionate, being sensitive is part of being a witch to me, because that's what it looks like on me. So what's a witch? It's what it looks like on you. if you claim yourself as a witch. But there's also another thing that I do still hold to, and this may change in the future. Again, I hold to witches are born, not made. And you will hear me use the musical metaphor so often because it really resonates for me as a musician. And as an astrologer, when you look at a chart, you see people's talents. You see what is innate in them. And you can see the talents that are part of being a witch in someone's chart. And that is part of you. That is solid, hardwired, never going to go away. Okay? So that sensitivity, those Neptunian qualities, those Plutonian qualities, Pluto and Scorpio rules witchcraft, but you got to have Neptune in there too, in my opinion. I mean, I guess if you're just a scorpionic witch and Neptune is pretty, innocuous in your chart, you're still a witch. I don't know. I haven't seen everybody's chart in the whole wide world, but particularly every witch. I haven't done that many witches' charts, relatively. But the witches are born, not made is a statement that says there are talents that you come in with. And so now we have to separate skill from talent. You come in with talents, which means you are blessed with an ease and a facility in this particular place. So for instance, with music, someone musically talented just finds it particularly easy to learn to play music. Maybe they pick up an instrument and they're not trained at all and they're pulling music out of it. But there can be someone that has not much musical talent in their chart, showing up in their chart, and they acquire the skill of making music and become a musician through that. So it is possible to gain skill if you don't have the talent. But I also believe that if you don't have the talent, if it's not innate in you, you're not going to go hunting for it. You're not going to be interested in it. And I actually have a story that totally flies in the face of that statement. So here we go. I belonged to a drum group a while back, and it was an African drum group. It was amazing. The teacher was an American man, a white man, who was trained by African and African American drum teachers. He was an incredibly talented musician and a wonderful human being, and he put together a drum group mostly with kids, just to teach kids about rhythm and drumming and stuff. And then the adults got interested, and it was a big community drum group. No auditioning. Everybody was welcome. Everybody got a chance. Everybody played together. And there was one man in this group named Sugat, and he was from Indonesia, I believe. And he was a dear man. I think he was a physics or mathematics professor at the university. And he was there. He clearly wanted to drum. And he had no sense of rhythm whatsoever. He just couldn't hear it. He couldn't get it. He couldn't make his body do it. But he was there wanting desperately to drum, and it made me question, I always say something's got to be innate in you for you to want it, because you won't even recognize it if it's not already part of you. But Sugat clearly wanted to drum and had no fucking talent whatsoever. I mean, we would be playing and Brian would look at him and go, Sugat, no, no, don't drum, no, because he just made a mess of things. Now, it is possible that he did have that talent in him, but there was something in the way, something of his training, something of trauma, something of whatever that was stopping him from thinking in the way he needed to think to produce the rhythms. I don't know. But like I said, flies in the face of. So it is possible to acquire skill. I used to lecture my kids on this all the time when they wouldn't practice their music or whatever else, because my kids have copious amounts of talent. And I would tell them, you're not practicing, and you can get so far on raw talent, but if you don't add skill to that, you're going to get blazed by some people who are working their asses off on the skills that have far less talent than you. So skill and talent are two things, and they need to go like this. And the best thing is talent that is backed up by skill, or skill that is backed up by talent, one way or the other. So following the musical metaphor, you can be a musician and not be particularly talented. So I'm going to use musician as kind of a replacement for witch here. So let's say you don't have a musical ear, and you sit down and you learn to play chopsticks by mimicking somebody. Does that make you a musician? No, it doesn't. That, I don't know, that makes you a dabbler. That makes you somebody that can play chopsticks. If you then go on and study and acquire a lot of skill, does that make you a musician? Yes, it does. If you're taking lessons and you can play a song through, it takes some work, but you can play this song through and it's not particularly exciting. Are you a musician? Maybe you're somebody that plays music. To me, a musician is somebody that whatever you give them, they're producing music from it. And you can listen to somebody just, hacking their way through a song, or technically making their way through a song or a dance, and it's not particularly inspiring. It's not particularly musical. It's not particularly, it doesn't make you weep. I've watched dancers that made me weep before because they have that spirit in them. So talent, let's go back to talent. It's a freebie. It's a gift. Trines in your chart are your talents. And those things are graces. They are gratuitous. They're free. They don't take work. But they do require sacrifice. They do require that you do something in order to pay for those gifts, almost, in order to make them really, to bring them to fruition. You have to practice. So, and I'm thinking about the term musician. I actually sang in a band once with a bass player, female bass player, who, in her opinion, vocalists were not musicians. I'm like, okay, I'm making music come out of me, and I practice, and, it's part of the band. So, yeah, I consider myself a musician as a vocalist. I'm also a musician as a guitarist and a keyboardist and a drummer, and, I play a lot of different things. So anyway, to relate this back to witchcraft, you can do spells like learning chopsticks. Okay, do this, and then it says to say this, and then it says to do this, and then, okay, now I'm done. But that missing part is that spirit, that soul, that connection. So to me, if you start off, learning the craft by just mimicking spells, you might get somewhere with that, but you'll get farther if you really devote your time to it and give it the attention, the practice that it needs. So witchcraft requires practice, and it requires investment of spirit into things. It requires a connection. So the witches are born, not made. I think that there's talent involved in that, and I think that there's also this innate connection to something bigger, to something other than. And that's part of the sensitivity of being a witch, is I am connected outside of myself. I am connected energetically, and I can sense those energies. I can sense them. And then when I want to change something, I can focus my mind, air. I can, and decide what it is that I want in great detail. I can then make a choice using my will to create this thing, to bring it into reality. So that, the magician card where he's got his left arm up to the sky and his right hand pointing down to the ground. Sometimes it's the other way, but left hand is receiving, right hand is sending. So it is receiving having inspiration, receiving an idea, and then bringing it through the senses, bringing it through the body and into manifestation. Any spell that you do, anything that you create, not spells, anything you create, whether it's a meal or a work of art or a piece of music or a paper, is taking something from the formless into form. The formless starts with an idea, and then it has to come through the will to take action on that idea, and then it requires the emotional feedback of how am I doing with this so we can adjust, and also the emotional component brings in our commitment of really wanting something, really hooking into the satisfaction that's going to come our way, how we're going to feel when we accomplish this, and then it comes into the earth element. And Sarah, I see that you said yes, but I'm not sure what you're saying yes about because there's a buffer and there's a lag time between what I'm saying and when you respond. So tell me, please, what your yes was to. So you start off with this idea, and then it takes focus, it takes dedication and skill, and particularly the energy raising part. That's a fire thing. When we do spell work, it's not coming out, it's not me. It's not just me. I am borrowing energy from the earth. I am aligning with the cosmos and with spiritual energy. And I am hooking into those wider energies in order to magnify the energy that I have to contribute to it. And that doesn't just come out of me and my body. I'm not an enclosed system. None of us are. We're all part of a greater system. So being a witch is knowing that I'm connected to the greater system, is knowing that I can shift things. It's understanding that I have that power. So, part of being a witch is just feeling that power in yourself. I remember when I was a little kid, probably 6 or 7, lying in my bed and looking at my door and thinking, I know I can open that door without anything but my mind. I know I can do it. And lying in bed and trying so hard to make that happen. Now, I'm sure a lot of little kids do that. That's kind of magical thinking, if I think it is so. So that's not, I don't know that that's the specific purview of baby witches, but to me, it was an early signal. And also, being on the playground, what should we do? Let's play witches. I was just always into witches. So, but having a sense of that power, having a sense that this is a possible thing, says that you have magic innate in you, that I understand how I can change and manipulate things. And then you start looking at, how does this work? You start seeking out what's witchcraft, Another real bell ringer of if you're a witch or not is when you finally stumble upon the craft. You go, oh my God, I'm finally home. There's a recognition. There's a recognition and a validation and kind of this opening up of somebody finally described me to me. And now I get it, I'm sorry. So let's go back to the original question of, is remote viewing witchcraft? Now, remote viewing, which is putting yourself in a very calm trance state and just saying, I would like to see what's in this particular place. You select a specific spot that you would like to remote view. And then, again, it's the skill of getting yourself quiet, getting yourself grounded, opening up your mind, opening, the 360 mind, not just the straight ahead mind, but the 360. Ooh, that's an interesting metaphor, because the straight ahead thing is like the linear logical brain, but the right brain is the 360 brain, seeing all around. And when I do that shift, Because like when you're working on something, particularly if you're dealing with language and reading and writing and that kind of stuff, your focus is all out front. And when I want to shift that, I will consciously sit and say, okay, I'm sending my awareness out all the way around. So instead of awareness going this way, it broadens and goes around. And in remote viewing, then you sit and wait until, okay, I feel like I can see what I'm looking for. And then you just believe everything that your brain tells you. You say, okay, and you accept the images that your brain is giving you. And hopefully things can be checked out later so that you can be validated. But that's what remote viewing is. And it's a real thing. They've used this in the military for many, many years. They train people in this. It's a very male thing in the military. A lot of men doing it in the beginning. There's a movie called The Men Who Stare at Goats that's quite amusing. That's all about remote viewing. And there's a lot of information about that and what the military's done with it and how to learn it and all that kind of stuff is out there. So as far as something that we can't quite explain being considered magic, then yeah, why not? It's witchcraft. But if the people that are doing it do not identify themselves as witches, I think it's incredibly unfair to paint them with that brush. I think, it's kind of unfair for them to deny it's magic, but whatever. I don't care. I don't care if it's safer, if it's more accessible for people to think about it not as magic or witchcraft, because those words certainly throw things into the category of woo-woo, of the unexplainable and the questionable, But that doesn't invalidate what they're doing and the fact that it's real and that it's possible. And so the witchcraft that we do now, we're finally getting to a place where quantum science, quantum physics is starting to explain these things to us that witches have known always. The Aborigines in Australia and the Dreamtime. They have lived in the Dreamtime for all of their existence. They know it's a real thing. It's a practical thing. But looking from the outside, people say, ooh, that's mysterious and witchy and, magical and all that. So I hope that we're getting to a place with the new scientific knowledge that we have that helps us to understand that these things are natural, these things are real, and they are possible. But the doer of magic gets to call themselves whatever they want. And the witches are born, not made just says that there are innate talents required that, if you don't come in with them, you're not going to be as powerful as you could have otherwise. You're not going to have as much ability. It's like somebody that can really play some nice things on the piano, but they're not at the caliber of a concert pianist. One of those, I'm sure you're going to find talent in. One of those, you're probably, are going to find less. You're going to find less. So, it's a matter of degrees. But, and so let me throw another definition in here, and that's the widely accepted definition of magic, which is the art of changing consciousness at will. So that is a really powerful and wonderful statement to me because it places everything right here. The art of changing consciousness. It doesn't say magic is the art of changing things out there. It says the art of changing consciousness at will, changing my consciousness, my awareness. And what do I say? The only person you have business doing magic on is yourself, unless someone has come specifically and asked you to do something, and then it's best if you just lead them through it and teach them how to do it and, be there to put out the disclaimers and the barricades against them doing something stupid. But the art of changing consciousness is about shifting yourself. So when you do a spell, what you're doing is programming this computer with an outcome. And you're moving that outcome from the realm of conscious thought. Here's when I'm describing it. Here's what I want. That's all conscious. And a lot of it is ego-driven because it's I want, and what I don't want. That's all ego. And then when you do that spell work, The process of the spell work is integrating the parts of your brain. It's integrating the logical brain with the magical brain, with the subconscious, the bright brain, the analytical brain with the synthetic brain. You are passing that information, and you're going to do it in trance state because that's how spells get done. So again, just murmuring words and doing something without the focus, without that ability to drop into trance is not really going to get the job done. But you're moving it from this realm of logic and ego into the subconscious, which is what motivates actions. And when you install that in your subconscious, it starts pointing your actions towards the outcome that you have said that you desire, in your spell work. Know, though, that sometimes the first thing that happens when you do a spell working, really powerful one, is that you get smacked with the very thing you don't want. And sometimes that's because the universe is showing you what's in the way of you having your outcome. And the universe can see things from a much higher level than you can. They can see the full map. You can see the road that you're on. And you can think, oh, I know where this thing is that I want, and it's going to take me this and this and this and this and this to get there. But Spirit's going, no, really, if you just take a left-hand turn here, you're going to be right there. Spirit can see the full map and the shortest way. And so when you do spell work, either, you get the opposite of what you're asking for, and it's something that needs to be dealt with in order for the other thing to manifest. Or you find yourself suddenly strongly, intuitively led in a totally different direction. And it's like, I feel so strongly that I should do this, but it doesn't make sense. That's when you follow your intuition, because it's probably Spirit saying, here's a shortcut. And that you'll find out later on that you have arrived where you set out to go a lot faster than you ever thought, and in a completely different way than you imagined was going to happen. So when you do a spell, what you're doing is you're programming your unconscious mind, but you're also handing it over to Spirit. You're also handing it off to the universe. And the most important part of a spell really is the release at the end. Well, they're all important parts, but a really important part is releasing it at the end, because as long as you're still holding on to it and wanting, and thinking about it all the time, you're kind of holding the energy down. You're sort of you're grounding it, not in a productive way, but you're holding the energy back and reining it in. When you release a spell, what you are saying to the universe is, I trust you. I hand this to you. I trust you to accomplish this for me. And then you completely let it go. And then you are open to what is happening in real time so that you can respond to things intuitively and follow the guidance that's being given to you. So, what's a witch? A witch is somebody that can change consciousness at will. A witch is somebody who integrates all the parts of themselves. So, integrating mind, will, emotions, body, spirit, integrating all of those things, bringing them all to the fore at once, and then using the skills and the talents that you have, the sensitive talents, to make things change. More broad. And so, when you talk about what makes a witch, we got to talk about what is just here, not the gear and the tools and those don't make a witch. Those don't make a witch. Wearing purple and black doesn't make you a witch. It's the ability that you have. It's the innate talent and the skills that you have. Let's start with the innate talent and then the skills that add. Okay, Sarah, what else are you saying? So magic is mentalism in a sense. It's controlling your mind and therefore emotions, intention towards your own will, then release. I have to practice the release part. Yes, so I would agree with you there. Not, mentalism, I'm not sure what all goes with that word, because a mentalist is somebody that, back in the vaudeville days, mentalists were people that were mind readers. So yeah, no, not mind readers. And let's add this in there too, that being a reader is not being a mind reader. I'm not a mind reader. I'm a card reader. So I'm not sure whether that kind of aspect of mentalism would be part of witchcraft. But yes, I agree with the rest of it. Controlling your mind, let's say focusing your mind, because your mind is a wild fucking pony. and it takes off all over the place. The Buddhists call it monkey mind, jumping and hopping and going all the way. So you're never going to stop that. You're never going to stop your brain from doing what it does as far as random thoughts coming through. But you can learn to focus your mind, to point it at something and not pay attention to the other things that are going on, to focus to the point where the other stuff gets very quiet. Meditation is a skill that will help you with that. So, the skills of witchcraft, meditation, I'd say, is number one on the list. Absolutely number fucking one, because if you don't get a grip on the way your mind works and have an awareness of how it works, you're going to fall prey to it every time. For instance, if you don't understand that the thoughts you have generate emotions, and the story that you tell yourself is subjective and it generates emotions, you're going to fall prey to every story that somebody tells you, and you're going to get emotionally hooked and carried away with it and, drawn off your base and everything else. If you can pause. So here's one big thing that meditation teaches you how to do. It teaches you how to pause when you're hit with an emotion. Something happens and, this really pissed me off. Okay, can I pause in that moment and breathe? Or am I going to get swept away into action? I'm pissed off. I got to do something. I'm going to say this. I'm going to... Or can you work on the skill of going, that really pissed me off, hold up. And then filtering through the emotional gunk that you have to go through to get to the essence of what's happening. So being aware of your mind and able to direct and focus it, being aware of your emotions, and being able not to get hooked by them. And this is why I'm a Zen witch, because my Buddhist training has done that for me. The craft didn't teach me what Buddhism taught me, as far as clarifying my mind, as far as focusing and relaxing, as far as understanding that the quacking that goes on all the time here is a storyline that isn't necessarily true and I don't have to follow. It's interpretations. All right? Buddhism taught me that. So having that ability is a tremendous skill. And you're going to be practicing it your whole fucking life. You're never going to get to a place where your mind doesn't tell you stories. You're never going to get to a place where you stop thinking. Zen practice is sitting and breathing. And in the particular form that I followed, you sat and faced the wall because you want to shut out external distraction. But then once you shut out the external distraction, boy, is there a lot of internal distraction. We call it itching, twitching, and bitching. You try to meditate and relax, and everything starts to itch, and I'm uncomfortable, and this hurts, and then the brain is going off and bitching and interpreting and talking and quacking and everything, and you're thinking this is impossible. But it is impossible if you're going to try to make your brain stop doing that and your body stop having sensations. It is possible if you think the purpose of this is for me not to react to those things. The whole purpose of Zen meditation is learning not to react to the things that your brain does and the things that your body needs. It is learning to breathe and just abide while those things are happening without reacting and jumping into another storyline, which puts more thoughts out there that are more things to react to. Okay. So meditation, so key. Energy raising, and what that feels like. Not necessarily the specific techniques of it, but the specific techniques are going to teach you what it feels like. But you can raise energy fucking any way you want to. I can raise energy standing still and just taking some breaths and go from here to here as far as, You can raise energy dancing, drumming, rocking, singing, sighing, chanting, walking, running, spinning, cooking. You can raise energy any way you want to raise energy. The outers don't matter. The energy does. So there's another skill, is raising energy. The skill of, Sarah, you said release is hard. Yeah, me too. Me too. Way back in the early days, it was really hard. The release part was really hard because, especially when you're doing spell work, because you have a strong need, a really strong need. For instance, when I was trying to move out of the apartment that my daughter and I were living in, her father, my husband, had abandoned us. And I was living in this place that I could not afford. And I could not find another place because I wasn't working. Here's a single mom, with a child. Nobody was going to rent to me. And here I want to send out blessings to the man that allowed me to stay there as long as I did. Mr. Dutt, I bless you. A very compassionate human being. And I was doing spell work like on, I need to get out of here. I need to get out. I need an apartment. And it wasn't going anywhere because I was so needy. I was needing it so badly. And need is the ego at work most of the time. When it's not like a bodily need. And finally, when I clued into the fact that I was so in grief about losing this place, because it was a wonderful place. I loved that place. I did so much magic. I had a fireplace. It was glorious. And I didn't want to leave there. And I couldn't let that go. And I couldn't get out of there. It wasn't working. And then I finally got to the point of going, I really need to let this place go or I'm not going to get out of here. And what I did was, there was a grove of oak trees in the backyard. And in the middle of that, I buried a lot of spells. And it's like, okay, I need to really release this. And I went out and dug up that spot, everything that I had buried. I took it to the river and said, I release all of these. And in so doing, I release my tie to this place. Threw it in the river, blessed it, released it. Off you go, did the disclaimers. So this doesn't, brings no harm to anybody else. I'm just releasing this. And within 2 weeks, I was out of there. And it happened because a friend of mine who used to manage the places that we live called and said, hey, how you doing? She lived in Connecticut. I hadn't talked to her in a long time. How are you doing? And I told her what was happening. And she said, I'll call you right back. And she contacted the people that were currently managing the place. And within 2 weeks, I was moving in here. And on HUD, they put me on the waiting list. And by December, that was in October, by December, I was paying $128 a month in rent. So, and that wasn't a spell that I did. That was like the culmination of all the other spells of here, let us find a place, completely hinged on me releasing my ties to the current place. So all those other spells were hanging out there, but they couldn't do anything until I released the connection to the existing place. So yeah, release is a tough one. And I think a key part of it, of being able to do it, is trust. So another good skill for a witch is to really create those connections to your chosen deities, your chosen spirits, your animals, whatever is your source, really working with those and working in terms of having images of them in front of you, doing prayer work and blessing work that involves those deities. And when you do that, and this is devotional work to me, I call this devotional work. So I do a lot of ritual that has nothing to do with spell work, but it's my devotion. And, in the Charge of the Goddess, there's a part that says, nor do I demand aught of sacrifice. Okay, saying the goddess does not demand sacrifices be offered to her. And I do agree with that. And this is, separating it from that sort of magical thinking, if I kill these animals and offer them up in sacrifice. And I think that's what that statement is based in, is we don't kill animals. We've been accused of that for so long. So it is an important statement in the Charge of the Goddess that, no, we don't do sacrifices. We don't sacrifice animals. We don't sacrifice people or babies or anything like that. But I do believe that she demands sacrifice, and that sacrifice, she demands practice and devotion, offerings. that you're not going to get magic for free. You're going to have to trade something. Sacrifice is giving something up and getting nothing in return. So again, no, she doesn't demand that. She doesn't demand sacrifice, but she does demand that you pay for what you take. When I graduated from high school, the guy that did my graduation speech, it was called "Take What You Want and Pay for It," and it was just the most impactful, amazing speech that I'd ever heard at 17 years old. And it was true. Take what you want. So magic, let's apply that to magic. Take what you want and pay for it. Do what you want and pay for it. If you do a spell to, pass a test and you neglect to study, you're not going to pass that test. Pay for it. A spell to pass a test can help solidify the information in your mind. It can help you get it out when you need to. When I was in college and a straight A student, not at all what I was in high school. I graduated, I think I was like 2 or 3 from the bottom of the class in high school. But by the time I went to college, I had already been meditating for a while. And when I would have an exam, and of course I'd done all the reading, I took the notes, I studied and everything, but I would then do a meditation after I studied, and after I read a chapter just through the course of the class. And I would lie down and do a meditation, and I would imagine all of that information falling down like rain. Every bit of information was a drop of rain, and I was the earth, and all of those drops would fall down and just soak into me. And then I would end it with the affirmation, the information is in there, and when I need it, it comes to me. And I also have a little thing that I do when I can't remember something, when it's like, I can't remember, it's on the tip of my tongue, and I can't think of something. I know it's in there. I visualize fishing. I used to fish a lot. And I imagine that I'm casting, and I see the bobber hit the water, and then I go do something else. I'll see the bobber hit the water, and it's like, okay. And somewhere, usually very soon, it'll be like a dink-dink of the bobber, and the information comes. So know that everything you've put in your brain is still in there, and you can fish it out when you need to by doing some of these techniques. So meditation. Can't say it enough. Energy raising, release. Those are such important skills. So, this is what I sidetracked myself from. Take what you want and pay for it. You have to do something to get something. There's a trade-off. And here's another thing that I've run into over the years. Back in the 80s, there was a baby pagan group that was starting, mostly college students, and I was in my 30s at the time. And I would go and, the group would get together and I'd say, hey, how about I'll talk to you about this time. And then I'd go to the next one. And then it became, what are you going to talk about this time? And so I said, well, you know what? If I'm going to be teaching every time, I'd kind of like some compensation. Can we put out a donation basket? And clutching the pearls. Pearls were clutched. And what I got from people was, this should be free. This information should be free to everyone. And I said, and it is. And you are free to go get it in the same way that I did. And when I was learning from teachers, not university teachers because they got paid, but when I was learning from spiritual teachers, I would never show up without something in my hand for them. Whether it was a candle, incense, some wine, some charcoals, some, cookies, food, something, donation, something. I would never dream of showing up expecting to get some wisdom from a teacher without offering them something in return. It's an energy exchange. You can't keep taking from the pot and not putting anything in and think that it's going to be there for you forever. That's hubris. It's selfish. It's shitty. So there's my very strong opinion on that, is that, and it is really, energy is a circle, magic is a circle, right? You generate something, you put it out, it gathers to it the things that vibe with what you put out, and then it comes back to you. That's karma, that's magic, that's life. And when I'm learning from someone, that circle is in place, and I offer and I receive. The offering and receiving is a turning wheel that needs to be acknowledged, and it needs to be practiced. Okay, I think I kind of sidetracked myself there again. So again, are you a witch? You're the one that can answer that question. I would say if you think you're a witch, you are one. Now, if other people have called you a witch and you're like, no, 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 it might be something that you need to explore. Is this what I really am? What do I believe? What's this about? So many books, the things that are on my shelf are not current. The things that are on my shelf are from like the 70s and 80s. And sorry for playing with my hair today, y'all. But let's see, what's on my shelf there? Janet and Stuart Farrer, the Witch's Bible Complete, Spells and How They Work. Z Budapest is like, I would say Z Budapest and Starhawk are like my top two, but Z Budapest definitely. She is a bona fide traditional witch from Hungary. Her family hid when the exterminations were happening, and so her mother was a witch, and she truly is a traditional witch. And I love reading her because she doesn't have any of this, velvet gloves shit. She just tells it like it is, and I love her. So let's see, the Holy Book of Women's Mysteries is Z Budapest. The Grandmother of Time and Grandmother Moon are her books too, and they're wonderful. The spells are awesome. They are awesome. So I would highly recommend Z Budapest. I would highly recommend Starhawk for a purely American and Californian view of things. So Starhawk is really coming at it from a social justice standpoint, and a standpoint of just justice and fairness and making the world a better place. And the Farrers, those are my roots of craft, Gardnerian Wicca. So and each of those things, it's funny because when I say each of those things, they take me to a different ritual vibe. When I talk about the Farrers, it's deep and mysterious and formal. And yes, I do love those rituals, and I do that sometimes. I do a formal Gardnerian circle casting and ritual. Z Budapest is more like the just stand up and do it, stand up and make it happen. And I love that because that's also me. And then Starhawk just carries such consciousness with her, consciousness of the plight of the rest of the world. And as an activist, and she's a counselor, she's trained in psychology, so she brings that to it as well. I cannot put out an opinion on current authors because I haven't read their books, and I know there's many, many wonderful things out there. And the thing is, you've got to find your own. You have to find your own expression, because witchcraft on you is going to look different than witchcraft on anybody else, because you're unique and all that. So, what I would say, and I want to talk here about dabbling a little bit. You can dabble a lot when you're looking for what's a match for you, and there's not a thing wrong with that. Go in, if it feels totally wrong, it's like, okay, no, I'm not doing this. Go into another practice, and it kind of, this part vibes, this part doesn't. Okay. So take what you need and leave the rest, except that we don't want to be, like spiritual smorgasbord and just taking surfacey things from all of these and never going deeper in a practice. You definitely have to go more deeply into practice in order to truly become skilled at what you're doing in any realm. Jack of all trades, master of none. I kind of feel like a jack of all trades sometimes, but I know that I have mastered my form of witchcraft. And it is through deep practice in a number of things. So what I tend to do, being Plutonian, Scorpio rising, Pluto's sitting up on my midheaven conjuncting my Mercury. So Mercury is how my mind works. I get obsessed about things. Pluto is obsession. And when something hooks me, I dive head first. I am head first into that. And what I have had to learn not to do over the years is proselytize, because because it's the greatest thing since sliced bread for me at the moment, it doesn't mean that it's right for everybody else. And my first instinct would be, you got to do this too. It's the greatest thing ever. But that's not necessarily true. So I have learned how to really claim things on my own, maybe tell some people about it, and then let it go. Maybe they're into it, maybe they're not. But for instance, the Tibetan Buddhist practice, Tara practice, I dove into that head first, and I've practiced for many years. And it pays in spades. I know exactly what I know how green Tara acts. If I need something done fast and possibly painfully, but fast and thoroughly, I go to green Tara. My witchcraft practices have been many years of ritual over and over and over and over. And so, the fact that I don't do full-blown rituals that often is just a statement that I have internalized all this stuff, and it doesn't take me that long to get there. So if you're a baby witch, your practice is going to be walking your way through ritual, walking your way through the casting of the circle, the calling of the quarters, the invocation of deity, the raising energy, the working, the celebration, the release. Okay, there's going to be all of these steps that you have to go through. And the more often you just go through those steps, the more you are internalizing. You're internalizing that elemental wheel. You're internalizing the qualities of the deities. You're internalizing the whole process and the feeling of it. And I've had the experience of not so much, like I'm going to do this, I intend to do a ritual and everything, and I start pulling together the pieces, and all of a sudden I feel myself get there. It's like, ooh, it's here. And I drop myself into the magic that I'm doing and do it right then, because I recognize I'm already in it. I'm already in this place, Now, also, when you're starting out, you definitely want to follow those steps. You want to set up a circle because you need to be in a safe place. You need to protect yourself. There's no safer place than your own circle. And, if you work with a coven, if you work with a group of people, they need to be people that you can trust. And it takes a while to build a coven because you have to sort out those relationships. And it's a tall order to take people into a powerful and vulnerable space like a magical circle and have no drama show up and no, conflicts show up. That just happens because people are people. So, but it takes skill. It really takes skill to have a coven that is a balanced thing. And I mean, there are different kinds of covens. There are covens where everybody is equal and they pass the wand around every month. Somebody else hosts the circle. There are covens where there's definitely high priest, high priestess, and that's who does things. And, the rest of the group has their roles. All of that has to be decided on when you're working on a coven. And probably the first thing is finding out what people's ideas are. What do you imagine a coven to be? What are you seeking? Because if everybody's got pretty radically different ideas, save yourselves the trouble and don't try, until you have people that are like-minded. So going through those steps helps you really internalize those things. And that's what I was saying is there's no safer place than your own circle. So when you're practicing solitary, and if you're a member of a coven, you should still be practicing solitary. You should still be honing your own personal skills. You shouldn't be just relying, because I know there are some coveners that will be in the group and they're not really putting much into it. They're just there to kind of soak up what everybody else is bringing. So you have to be aware of those too. And those will show up in your circle. And there will be people that aren't willing to practice or that aren't willing to deal with their own trauma and emotional issues that come up when you start practicing magic, because they will. Remember when I said you do a spell and you will immediately be shown what's in the way? Yeah, when you start practicing, things are going to kick up from your psyche. There's going to be old things that need to be healed that are in the way of you claiming your full power. And if you're not willing to do that work, you can end up being a real drag in a group ritual. I've had experiences in ritual where we were doing something where we were sending energy around the circle, and there was one person that would just bog it down every time. It was trying to build up speed, and they would just bog it down because they couldn't go there. They had enough of their issues that they couldn't give themselves to the process, and they were afraid of it. And so their instinct was to control it. And they did control it. And is that power? Yes, it's power. That's negative power. um, so, so yeah, practicing solitary is going to make you, when you do go to a group or a coven, you're going to be a finely tuned instrument and you're really going to bring something worthwhile. And then when you have people that are doing their own practice and they get together in a group, holy shit, can you blow the roof off the joint? I mean, you really, really can. Covens have tremendous benefits to them. The first covens that I was involved in, the first coven I was involved in was toxic as all get out. And I got out. The second coven, the one that initiated me, did not invite me in. The leader of that coven was toxic. And I asked too many questions, and I don't blame her. I asked too many questions, and I recognized that it was probably a time where I just needed to go into that process. But I also think it was a case of questioning not being allowed in the context there. Other baby covens that have tried to start, and I've had so many people ask me, can we start a coven? But what generally happens, I notice, is that people start to depend on me to do it. And there was one baby coven that was starting, and I started recognizing that people who were actually initiated had not yet internalized the elements and what they mean. I'd say, can you call air? Well, what's that again? I'm sorry. You are not bringing what is required to this for it to work as a group. You're depending on me, and I can't drag people behind me. If I'm going to have to do that, I'd rather do it myself. Thank you very much. I am all about teaching, but then you have to learn. If I'm going to teach, you have to learn and pick up your end of it, and then we can get somewhere. Okay, Sarah, here's another. I'm so glad that we're having like a one-on-one conversation here, Sarah. This is great. I don't even know how many people are watching this. I don't care at the moment. Is there ever a wrong or right time to join a coven? I'll take them one at a time here. I would say you'd figure that out after you do it. I mean, wow, that's a good question. So what would be a right time to join a coven? When you are initially, when you are looking to learn, when you are looking to experience what's possible, when you are invited, it's time to go check things out. Would there be a wrong time to join a coven? I mean, I'm thinking of scenarios here, like if you are deeply vulnerable because you're in the middle of core work, like in counseling and therapy, and you're not really sure of things. I mean, to join a coven, you've got to trust the people. There are phrases that we use: perfect love and perfect trust. Perfect love is acknowledging that everyone deserves it unconditionally. Perfect trust is that I will never do anything to hurt you, and I understand that you will never do anything to hurt me. And that's an understanding, So when you gather with a group of people, you are gathering in perfect love and perfect trust. And whether you have that perfect love and trust or not, you behave as if, And so the perfect trust thing, that's laid on you to edit your actions and your words and everything. And you think about, am I going to hurt somebody with this? Am I going to break a trust if I do this or say this? Or, there's got to be understanding in the beginning. So I would say if you're feeling the pull, like you need to be with a group of people, then it's worth pursuing. Then it's something to go and find out. But also know that you might find out the opposite of what you thought you were going to find. So you've got to be open. Again, you got to be open to what's going to come at you and use your intuition, use your guts. It is true that the things that you really, really need to learn are going to come to you. The old, when the student is ready, the teacher arrives things. It's just that when you are ready to learn something, you will recognize the lesson. It's not like something externally, okay, I'm ready to be a student, and then all of a sudden there's this. Oh, and now I'm going to tell you a story of how that's exactly the way it is. So back in the 70s was when I was first introduced to the craft and recognized that I'm home, you know. It wasn't until the 80s, and this would have been the late 80s, that I went back into the craft after, you know, hard right turn. And I remember arriving at that decision going, I really need to do this again. I want to go back into the study of the craft. I am a witch. It's time. And within a week, a friend came up and said, hey, there's a new shop downtown. It's called the Rowanwood Tree, and it's a witch store. And I walked in, and here's my ignorance and my lack of experience. I walked in to the woman that owned that store and said, I pick you for my teacher. I want you to be my teacher. So here's the big assumption. I assumed that she had been trained and that she, you know, was qualified to be my teacher. It turns out she didn't know any other witches until she opened that store. And this happened to me another time. I found out about a store called the Mystic Goddess in a neighboring city. And it's like, ooh, we're going to go see that. So I pack up my little girl and we go to the Mystic Goddess. And I walk in and I meet the owner, Ken, who informs me that I'm the first witch other than himself that he's ever met. So here's what some people do. They need the community and, you know, starting a business and then the people come. Now, I wasn't looking for a teacher at the time, but I became a teacher in that shop. I taught a lot of things. We did a ritual group. I taught tarot. I taught magic. I taught all kinds of stuff. So maybe that was a case of him being ready and I was the teacher that arrived. But most of the time, more generically, it's just about I am ready to learn this thing. And so I'm on the lookout for it. The lessons could be all around me before, but if my mind isn't ready for this specific answer, I'm not going to recognize it. That's kind of how I look at it, that sort of reflective thing. Let's go to your next question. Should a novice witch go through self-mastery and shadow work extensively before joining, in your opinion? I'm a sponge right now. This is helping me. Yay, I'm so glad, Sarah. I would say you should always be doing self-mastery and shadow work. That's going to be a lifelong thing. Really, it is. Trust me. It's going to change over time. And it will get a little bit easier. And like I said, it's going to change, but it's because, you know, you're changing. And our lessons, those karmic lessons that, you know, come from, that the shadow shows to us, are our karmic lessons for this whole go round. So think about a spiral. You go around, okay, here comes this lesson. Wow, I learned a bunch there. And then you level up. And you go around and it's like, oh shit, I've been here before. Well, but I'm looking at it from a higher perspective and I learned something a little different. So each time the lesson cycles around, you are going to meet it with a new awareness. You are going to meet it as a more mature person, as a more skillful person. And so there's going to be karmic juice to wring out of your experiences in your life throughout your entire lifetime. Guaranteed. So, actually, joining a coven can help you get through that shadow work. So that first coven that I was talking about, when the Rowanwood Tree, the woman I went to and said, I pick you to be my teacher, she had work to do. All the other baby witches that showed up at that store and said, I pick you. You know, we made a coven together. Holy shit, was there a lot of toxic stuff going on in that coven. There was one person in particular who was an incredibly talented witch, incredibly talented, and a sucker and a toxic psychic vampire, manipulative, just awful. And she used her talent to kind of pull people in gently. And then there would be this kind of spin. But then again, the coven kind of turned on her. So, you know, all this drama was kicking up, and I'm working full time, and I'm coming to coven meetings and everything. And suddenly I get a call. This woman had made bracelets for all of us, knotted bracelets, and which is spell work. And I'm wearing this bracelet. It was like, oh, what a nice gift. I'm going about my business. I'm at work, and I get a call from the priestess of the coven saying, cut the bracelet off, cut the bracelet off. She's doing some horrible things and blah, 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 blah. Okay, right, great. I cut it off. I was done. When we're thinking about throwing her out of the coven, I just said, fine, okay, great, whatever you guys decide. I cut the bracelet off, and I was done at that point. The next coven meeting, it's all about talking about her. She's doing sex magic. And first of all, I'm thinking, that's magic. What is it of your business that she's having sex with? What's the and then realizing that they were seeing sex magic as something negative, and it's like, ooh, man, I don't know about this. But still, I was like giving the benefit of the doubt. And then at that meeting, it was like, okay, we're going to formally oust her from the coven. Here we go. Great. Let's do this. Couple more meetings talking about it. The drama was just, God, it was just horrible. It was so heavy. And then we were meeting at the shop one night, and we were going to officially evict her. I get there. It's a Sunday night. We're told to be there, I don't know, 7, 8 o'clock or something. And we get there, and it's gossip, quacking away. And I'm thinking, what the fuck? And it was almost 11 o'clock. And I was sitting there with such a pissed off look on my face. At one point, somebody said, what's the matter? And it's like, ooh, I realized that what I'm thinking shows up on my face. That is my chart ruler up on the midheaven. So, I'm like, no, everything's fine. So it got to be like almost 11 o'clock, and they were finally getting around to starting the circle. And I pulled the priestess aside, the one who I picked as my teacher. And I said, I am leaving. I'm not going to be here. And she's like, why? And I said, I don't have enough time, and I'm not going to slow down what you're doing here to explain it now. I will come by another time when we can give it the proper attention. And so I went back to her and I said, this isn't what I'm here for. And actually, before I left, I said, this isn't what I'm here for. I'm not here for identifying a scapegoat for all of our problems and attacking them. And, so I went back to her and I told her all this stuff. I told her about the drama. And I said, when you told me to cut that bracelet off, I was done then. Because I did the magic. Cut the tie, I'm done. And I said, do you not understand that every meeting that you people had, and you chose to keep talking about her and talking about her and talking about her, you're the ones that gave her the power over you. She has total power over you because you gave it to her. I cut it off. And so, and she was pissed. She was an Aries. And here was another thing. Everybody in the coven, a lot of people smoked cigarettes. And it was my strong opinion at the time, and I still had this opinion, but I also understand addiction. So I'm not going to judge your life. But when you're in ritual, and when they had a ritual at my house, I made them smoke out on the porch, and that pissed them off, and they spent most of their time out there. And I was thinking, if we talk about smoke being something that can clear, smoke being a powerful thing, we use incense. We pick our incenses because they have different energies. And we believe in these things. We believe that they have magical energies. What do you think about drawing those chemicals into your lungs? What do you think about drawing all that toxicity into your body and what that does to you energetically? So I brought that up. I brought up the fact that most of them ate in a very unhealthy manner, and that was really crossing a line, I think, in my mind. It's like I said, people each to his own. You've got to figure it out in your own time. It's not my job to fix you. And I sat with her for like an hour and a half going through these things, and everything I came up with, she just was like really angry and throwing things at me. And I remember sitting there, and it took all the skills I had at the time, which I had been a meditator for many years, but of just going, that's not what I said. That's not what I said. This is what I'm really saying. And finally, I got to the point where I couldn't take her anger anymore. And I said, okay, I got to go. I'm done. I've told you everything I can tell you. I got to go. And I left. And I heard from somebody that was in the coven after that what she related to them was that I left because I didn't like cigarette smoke. So again, you have no control over what somebody's going to hear, of what lesson, when you're putting a lesson out there that can be clear as day to you, you have no control over what that other person is going to hear or how they're going to interpret it. So, why do I believe in spiritualism? When did I say that? Are you talking about spiritualism as far as like the spiritualist church and mediums? and stuff like that? Or are you talking about being a spiritual person? Spiritualism, as far as being a spiritual person, spiritual practice, and I don't use the word spiritualism or spiritualist practice, that denotes something very specific. But religion versus spiritual is, religion is something external, spiritual is internal. When you have a spiritual practice, it is for you. It is about reconnecting, connecting yourself, and internally it comes from within. Religion comes from without. Here's what to believe. Here's what you do by joining our group. You move into that group, you join, you learn something, and you follow their teachings. So spiritualism, I do believe in mediumship and talking to the dead and everything because I've done it. I had that experience. I know it's a real thing. I have had messages. I've worked with mediums. I've had readings. and it's a real thing. So that's why I believe in it, because I've experienced it. To me, faith is anchored in experience. You can take things on faith, and when you're learning, you have to take things on faith. So when you're learning magic and people say, do things this way, do it that way. So I was talking about going head first into practices, and what that means is following their rules. When you first go into something, follow their rules, learn the system, step into their system, and give it the best shake you can. Give it the best effort you possibly can, 100%. And when you practice, and that's how you're really going to find out if it fits or not. If you go into something and go, well, I kind of like this part, that feels good, but this part, I don't know about that. That's a little too hard for me. I mean, you're not really trying a system. So if you're going to try a system, go in, give it a 100% fair trial according to its rules. What I find is that I go 100% into a system, and then after practicing it for a while, what happens is like the window dressing falls away. The political, the bullshit, the trappings, the things that aren't really at the core of it tend to fall away, and I retain the essence of it. Okay, and Reese M, hi, is asking more questions here. That says, I don't believe in religion. Well, religions exist, but, it's your choice whether you want to follow any particular religion. That's entirely your choice. But the word religion, religio, is the root. What does it mean? But reconnecting, retying. So religion is about reconnecting to the source. It's organized religion that brings in the problems, because then you try to codify the spiritual journey, and that's not possible to do for every individual. It is unique, it's individual, it's yours. When you go into a system, as I was saying before, give it the fairest shake. Really try your best. And coming back to what I was talking about way in the beginning, internalize the principles of it, internalize the practices of it, internalize the energies. Get yourself hooked up and connected with those energies. And then you'll see what's the parts of it that don't really matter. For instance, Tara practice, Tibetan Buddhist practice. Started realizing after a time that, looking at just sort of principles of Buddhism, the organized religion, and there was this thing about you can only attain enlightenment in a male body. Imagine how well that went down with me. And then I brought it to my teacher. So here, if you do have a teacher and you're learning a system and you have all these doubts that are thinking, oh man, I must be horrible for thinking this and I don't really have faith, or I don't believe the system, or whatever, take it to your teacher. If you have a good teacher, you're going to be able to ask questions like that and have a discussion with them and come to your own conclusions. So I took it to my teacher and I said, I have a serious issue with that. And she said, well, so does the Dalai Lama. Somebody asked him about that in Buddhist principle, and he said, no, Tara changed all that. So the practice that I was doing, the green Tara practice, actually, her story is what changed the whole, you can't be enlightened unless you're in a male body. So it is important to question. It is important to keep an open mind and keep a questioning mind. But it's also important to try something. I go through this with astrology. You know, the famous debunkers of astrology, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Oh God, what's that guy's name that I really can't stand? I can't think of his name right now. But these people that say they've debunked astrology and they set up experiments that has no real astrology in it anywhere. Nothing. They give people bullshit, and when people fall for it, what they've proven is that people are gullible. They haven't proven anything about astrology because they haven't used astrology. And I have put this offer out to skeptics for decades now. Okay, you're skeptical, astrology is bullshit. Please give me your birth data and let me read your chart, knowing nothing about you, and then tell me whether it works or not. And I have never had anybody take me up on it. It pisses me off. So that is still a standing order. Don't believe in astrology? I'll do your chart, and then we'll talk about it. So, but to debunk astrology, the point there is to debunk it and say it's not true. You have to actually go in and see what the system is about. So, you know, I'm not comfortable looking at any other religious system and saying, ooh, that's bullshit. I don't know. I haven't tried it. There are some that are obviously toxic and some that have a track record that without going into the system, I can read the stories of the horrible things people in this particular thing are doing, and I can make a judgment on that. But as for regular old, you know, organized religion, I can't do that unless I try it out. So if you want to have a really big opinion about something, go fucking try it. Try it, learn, and then you can have a valid opinion. So anyway, and most of these practices are just to get rid of ego. You're not going to get rid of ego. You're not gonna. It's there. It's part of being human. What you are going to do is separate your true self from it. What you're going to do is recognize how ego acts and what it looks like when it's jumping up and down. And then you are going to learn how to step away from that and actually use your deeper mind rather than just your ego brain jumping around here. So the fact that more than one religion on God supposedly exists proves itself that it's BS. No, not necessarily. No, not necessarily. And that's a whole other video there. And I'm looking here and seeing, let's see. Oh, God, this has been an hour and a half. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. So I am going to close this down now. It's been a long one. I hope you got something out of it, my 4 viewers. But it will go up as a video now, and you guys will be able to see. I hope I answered your questions. I hope I gave you more questions. Truthfully, I really hope I gave you more questions. I hope I made you curious. Please ask those questions down below. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you have not done it. And I know I keep saying all these things that are coming. They're coming, I promise. It's just been, you know, I can only move at the pace that the universe is willing to let me move at. But I am setting a goal that I want to put up a video Monday through Friday every day. And Sarah, thank you so much for your comment. I'm glad you got a lot out of it. Again, let me know what questions you have. I am happy to engage with you, and I am very, very happy to answer your questions. And now I'm going to try this thing because I have my channel up so I can see my live stream. And I know if I just click end stream, it's going to chop off the feed to YouTube while it's still buffering. So I'm going to say goodbye to you and then do something that signals me it's time to end the live stream. And then I'll shut it off. So complicated. So many things I have to learn. All right. So again, I love you guys. Get in there and practice. Get in there and practice. Try shit. Learn. Fuck up. You're going to learn the most from your fuck ups. Fuck up. Don't hurt anybody. All right. This is the Zen Witch. I will see you next time. Take care, you guys. Blessed be.